Okay, let's dive in. We're looking at a substance today that honestly sounds like something straight out of a spy thriller.
Absolutely. It's got everything, doesn't it? Cold War secrets, nuclear plots, even alchemy.
Right, Red Mercury. But the strangest part, based on the material you shared, is that it might not. Well, it might not even be real.
It's a perfect example of how an idea can take on a life of its own,
Yeah.
become incredibly powerful, incredibly persistent, even when there's basically zero hard evidence.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what this deep dive is all about. We've got quite a stack of sources here, articles, notes, bits of research.
hmm
And our goal is really to unpack where this whole Red Mercury thing came from, look at the frankly wild claims about what it supposedly does.
Some are really out there.
Totally. And figure out why this phantom substance has stuck around for so long, especially in like the shadier corners of the world, the black market.
And as we go through the info you've gathered, we'll keep doing that reality check, looking at the claims, the rumors, but always comparing them to what the material itself highlights, which is the complete lack of any verified scientific proof.
Okay, so ground zero. What is Red Mercury supposed to be? According to the stories, I mean.
Well, the sources immediately flag it as, deeply mysterious,
Hmm.
controversial. It seems to have first really surfaced during the Cold War,
Right.
and the thinking was it came from the Soviet Union, hence the red.
Makes sense. And the mercury, just linking it to the element.
Seems like it, just linking it to the element mercury, yeah. But beyond the name, things get fuzzy really fast.
Like what it actually looks like. I noticed the descriptions were all over the map in the sources.
Exactly. The most common image is this cherry red, thick liquid, viscous.
Okay.
But then other counts in the material you found mention a powder. So even the basic physical state isn't consistent. It changes depending on the source, the brooder.
Chemistry, I bet that's even worse.
Oh, yeah. Total mess. Some sources you provided give a specific formula,
Yeah.
like mercury antimony oxide, Hg2SB207.
Okay, that sounds specific at least.
It sounds specific, but then other claims suggest it's like pure mercury, but mixed with weird isotopes, or maybe even other radioactive elements thrown in.
So no consensus at all.
Not even close. And that inconsistency, that's a huge red flag right from the start, scientifically speaking, based on the materials.
But the absolute bottom line, the key takeaway from all these sources about what it physically is.
It really boils down to this. Has anyone credible, any reputable lab or institution, ever actually gotten their hands on it and confirmed it?
And the answer is,
A clear no. The material is emphatic on this.
Yeah.
No verified sample,
Mhm.
ever.
Yeah.
Not identified, not analyzed by any legitimate scientific body. That vacuum of proof is, the core of the whole mystery.
okay, so we have this thing, no verified form, no agreed upon chemistry, but the stories about what it can do, they're extraordinary. Let's get into those alleged uses.
The list in your sources is pretty staggering and often contradictory, like you said. Probably the biggest one, the most persistent claim, is about nuclear weapons.
Making them smaller, that whole suitcase nuke idea.
That's the one. The claim is red mercury could somehow act as maybe a fusion booster or a super efficient neutron reflector, something that lets you build tiny but still incredibly powerful nuclear or even thermonuclear bombs.
That sounds game-changing, if true.
If true, yeah. But the material you shared immediately pushes back hard on that. It states pretty clearly, no nuclear physicist, no arms inspector, nobody credible has ever backed this up.
And it just doesn't fit with how nuclear physics actually works.
Exactly. It seems to contradict the known principles. So
Yeah.
that really big, scary military use. The sources themselves seem to pour cold water on it pretty effectively.
Okay, so no tiny nukes? What about other high-tech claims? I saw stuff about stealth technology.
Yeah, some reports claim it could make aircraft or missiles invisible to radar, maybe by messing with electromagnetic fields somehow.
Another huge claim.
Huge, yeah. And again, the sources just say, look, there's no support for this in mainstream science. It's unsubstantiated.
And then it seems to take a really sharp turn into the weird alchemy, occult stuff.
It really does. You
Yeah.
find mentions in, let's say, conspiracy theory circles or some pseudoscientific narrative
Right.
where red mercury suddenly gets tied to, like, actual magic, time travel, eternal life, talking to spirits even.
Seriously. From nukes to ghosts?
Yeah. Your sources are pretty direct here. They say these claims are purely speculative. They seem to draw more from old alchemical myths than anything remotely scientific.
Wow. So the list of alleged powers runs from superweapons and stealth jets all the way to basically magic potions, and I saw something about attracting wealth.
That comes up later, yeah. It's an incredible
Is
spectrum.
there any claimed use that sounds even slightly less fantastical, more grounded, maybe?
Well, there is one theory, still totally unverified, mind you,
Yeah.
but maybe less out there than time travel. It's the idea it could be used to make really powerful conventional explosives, or maybe radiological weapons, dirty bombs.
How would that work?
The idea seems to hinge on it being supposedly very dense or having properties that could somehow amplify a normal explosion. The material does note it pops up in terrorism rumors and hoaxes,
Okay.
which gives it a kind of dark plausibility for some people, I guess. But again, it's crucial. This has never actually been demonstrated or scientifically confirmed.
It's just amazing that something with zero proof could spawn so many incredibly detailed, elaborate stories. It feels less like a substance and more like a myth-generating machine.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it.
Why has it persisted so strongly? What do the sources say about why this mystery won't die?
A lot of it seems rooted in the Cold War atmosphere, that intense secrecy, the paranoia.
Right.
Both sides, East and West, were deep into misinformation, disinformation campaigns, and that kind of environment. It was perfect soil for a rumor like Red Mercury to grow.
So it might not have even started as a real substance rumor. Maybe it was deliberate, a psychological operation, a psyop.
That theory is definitely in the sources, yeah.
Yeah.
The idea that maybe Red Mercury was entirely made up, invented,
For a purpose.
potentially as bait, a trap to lure out and identify countries or groups or individuals who were secretly trying to get their hands on nuclear materials illegally.
And did that actually happen? Were there sting operations based on this?
Oh, yes. The sources detail quite a few, especially in the 90s. Across Europe, the Middle East, undercover agents would offer fake Red Mercury for sale.
And people bought it or tried to.
They did. Buyers showed up, deals were discussed, arrests were made. It really shows how much people believed it was real, believed in its power, even with no actual proof out there. That ambiguity, that lack of certainty, that's what made it so seductive.
So, born in secrecy, maybe pushed by deception, fueled by uncertainty. But why the black market specifically? What makes it the perfect underground commodity?
Well, if you think about how black markets work, Red Mercury hits a lot of sweet spots, according to your sources. First, just the raw demand.
Because people believe the hype.
Exactly. That core belief that this is a shortcut to nuclear power or immense wealth or whatever makes it incredibly desirable for, terrorist groups, maybe rogue states or just rich fanatics. The belief drives the market, whether the stuff is real or not.
And if nobody knows what it really is, it must be incredibly easy to fake.
Bingo. That's a huge point in the sources. Since the real composition is a mystery, scammers can basically just take any red-colored substance.
Like what?
Oh, simple stuff.
Mhm.
Red dye mixed with something, basic mercury oxide, maybe red mercury sulfide cinnabar. Your sources mention these. They can bottle that up, call it red mercury.
And charge a fortune.
Millions of dollars per kilogram, potentially, for something completely worthless. The profit potential is astronomical.
Wow. Just selling a story, basically.
And it's hard to crack down on because, as your sources point out, it's not officially recognized. It's not on international lists of controlled chemicals or anything.
So it slips through the cracks legally.
Right. It makes it perfect for trafficking, especially in places where law enforcement is weak or, maybe looks the other way.
And I guess all the mentions in movies, books, news reports, that helps keep the legend alive too.
Definitely. Even if a story is skeptical, just mentioning Red Mercury reinforces its image. It makes it sound important, dangerous, secret. It adds to the mystique, even unintentionally.
Some of the real-world incidents mentioned in the sources are just bizarre. They show how far the belief spread.
They really do. The sewing machine connection is maybe the weirdest.
Right. Tell us about that. Sudan, Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, early 2000s, rumors started flying that old sewing machines, especially vintage Singer models for some reason, contained red mercury. And the belief wasn't about bombs this time. It was that this red mercury could, attract money or spirits.
Sewing machines attracting wealth or ghosts. How does that even connect back to the original nuke stuff?
It shows how myths mutate. Right. A core idea gets twisted and adapted as it spreads. People apparently spent huge amounts of money buying up these old machines, taking them apart.
And finding.
Nothing, of course. Absolutely nothing. It's kind of a tragic comic illustration of how powerful the belief became, completely detached from its supposed origins.
And it wasn't just sewing machine rumors. Actual international organizations got involved in trafficking cases.
They did. Both Interpol and the IAEA, that's the UN's nuclear agency, They've investigated lots of reported Red Mercury deals over the years.
And what did they find?
Your sources are pretty consistent here. In almost every single case they looked into, the Red Mercury involved turned out to be, well, either nothing at all or just some common harmless red substance. Worthless fakes.
Okay, so bringing this all together, the crazy claims, the thriving black market, these weird hoaxes, why should someone listening right now care about this ghost substance? What's the takeaway?
I think your sources frame it really well. The story of Red Mercury is like a perfect storm. It shows how you can mix Cold War secrecy, genuine human greed, and crucially, the power of misinformation, and
Yeah.
create this incredibly persistent, high-value black market item out of thin air, something that probably doesn't even exist.
It really highlights the power of just belief,
Yeah.
doesn't it? Believing something intensely, even when all the science says no.
Exactly. It sits in this weird space, like your sources say,
Yeah.
between science fiction, the fantastic claims, and very real-world stuff like international smuggling and intelligence games.
So to wrap up this deep dive, the core tension that comes through all the material is really stark, isn't it? It's
Mhm.
this incredibly powerful idea of a substance, almost magical in its abilities,
Right.
set against the cold, hard scientific reality that there's just no proof, no evidence it's real.
And that final thought from the material is pretty striking. Red Mercury might be a fantasy, but for the people chasing it, buying it, selling it, its power, its influence is absolutely real in their world.
That is a potent thought. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? What does this whole Red Mercury saga tell us about how information, or maybe just the idea of valuable secret information, spreads and takes root, especially when it's wrapped up in secrecy and belief like this was?
Yeah.
What other really powerful ideas might be floating around out there, shaping actions, shaping markets, that are maybe based more on myth than on solid fact? Something to think about.